ATF Agent Chris Bayless talks about the one time when it really got personal. Why was this one so different?
I don't know. Probably because it was so personal. Because I was probably an arm's length away from the guy. I could see his eyes. I could see his emotion. I almost felt like I could see what he was thinking. I could smell him. It just, all those, it was just so fucking personal, and I was like so pissed off. Like the shooting with Jay. I mean, we were getting shot at. I mean, I didn't. I don't. I guess it just didn't affect on the personal level. The times when I went to save, like times we would save other agents, like when we'd have to go in and get like Jason in St. Louis, or Bruce Stuckey in another one 14 days later in St. Louis on those incidents, driving into an active gun battle. And so, you just did it. You did how you were trained, and unfortunately we got out of it good. But those didn't. For some reason, I think it was so fucking personal.
Welcome to Game of Crimes. Did you get to do one of those things, show up in court and go, "It was me"?
Yeah, well, I thought it was interesting because even after they were indicted and they were all arrested and stuff, and they're looking at the indictment, and they still were having a hard time putting like, who's this guy, undercover one? Like, well, what's how, and they're like, fuck. And then they kind of put it together, like, oh shit, it's the dead guy. So then they realized, this is going to be a problem. So they broke it down. So we had, I think, probably 65 defendants total. We took 19 on the RICO, and the other 65 were just standalone drug buys, drug deals, gun or stolen Harley deals. So we took 19 for the RICO. Everybody pled. We were getting ready to go to trial. I spent, God, 5 or 6 months transcribing tapes and, making sure the attributes were correct and what was said was right, and validating all the transcripts. And I mean, it's voluminous. It takes a long time to do that. So once we got done with that, the last guy to go was the guy that was the president. He was the national president, Ed Days. Finally, I think his attorney talked to him and said, you could plead and get 20, or you could take a chance and do life. What do you want to do? And he goes, all right, I'll take the 20. So he took 20.
Hey, on the charges that didn't go federal, because stealing a motorcycle isn't federal unless was it part of the RICO, or how many of these charges were all federal versus how many did you run through state?
The about six, I want to say, actually only about 20 went to state. I think probably the other 45 were federal, either gun buys, dope buys, but just didn't fit into the RICO scheme. Some of it were, brothers that were, within every group and organization. They're all together for a lot of stuff, and they're single actors for other things too. And so you don't want to take a chance on throwing something in the RICO that might have been a single act that some guy committed by himself or on his own that really didn't go to the furtherance of the club. So those incidences, those things were taken state, or smaller crimes, smaller drug amounts that I might have bought. Those end up going state.
Wow. So and after see, again, it goes back to people thinks it's sexy. You're working undercover. If they only knew how much paperwork was involved and
Uh,
5 to 6 months of transcribing
uh,
audio tapes,
right.
what
you
fun!
know, I mean, I'd go down to drive 2 hours to Peoria, Illinois, sit in the U.S. attorney in the basement of the courtroom, and just listen to my drivel and drabbling on. And that's when you realize good undercovers at the end of their career say virtually nothing except for exactly what they need to say to get the evidence. And the rest of it, they don't say a fucking thing because
Good
they
point.
know they're going to have to sit down and transcribe this shit. You know, I would illuminate on some great fucking story of mine, and I'd be, fuck, why did I say that? Why did,
Yeah. Well, until
who
you get if
cares?
you've got multiple voices in the background, you're trying to delineate who said what, and it's confusing as it can be.
Yeah, inaudible. Yeah.
It's like when the guys in the club saying, "You're a man of few words, Chris." There's a fucking reason why. You will find out later.
Yeah, because later in court, I don't want to spend, 4 years on the stand, going over
Yeah.
each syllable.
Oh man. So how long had and you'd been on ATF about 7 years by that point when it all came to a conclusion?
That one, it would have put me at about the
10 year
12 year
mark.
mark. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're getting salty. You're a salty veteran. You've got a few. By that time, how many UC cases had you worked?
Uh,
Most likely, couple hundred.
yeah, I would say so easy. Yeah. Yeah. Because every day, I'm sorry. Like I said, I was in a group that Jay was in my group at first when he got taken hostage and shot in Arizona. He came up to Chicago. He was in my group.
That's on his first fucking week of work.
Yeah, first 14 days. Well, then he gets to Chicago. Did he tell you a story when he quit after the shooting we were in Joliet? Or did he fail to mention that one?
No, he didn't talk about quitting.
Oh, yeah. So we're doing a revert. We reverse these gangbangers, gangster disciples. They bring their own guns. Long story short, not to go into some big detail, but we end up in the stack that helps with the takedown. We never should have done it, but it got befucked at the end. Jay and I are in my undercover car, which we'd actually had our vests in the back seats. We'd done the reverse. It got kind of convoluted. We end up in front of the bad guys, and so they're getting ready to do a traffic stop on these guys to get the guns. Well, as soon as they light them up, this kid shows up on a bicycle. So I'm on the wire, and I'm like, "Hey, you guys, abort! Don't do it." I go, "There's a kid on a bicycle that's going to be right where you guys are taking him down." So I speed my car up a little bit, let the bad guys catch up, and then I kind of block the road after the kid passes. Jay and I get out of the freaking car. We got our guns out, announcing our office and everything. Cops, cars behind him and stuff. Well, the driver gets out the front window and he starts firing at Jay, and then fires over the car at me. They end up running Jay over with the car. His shoes get knocked off. I end up jumping back in the car, chase him, kind of pit him into a field. They get out. They're hiding in this field. Now, I had left Jay there because he got hit by the car. So he's still back where the shooting started. So you got these two guys hiding out in this field, and it was where they were building new construction. So there's mounds of dirt. So I'm kind of at the top of a mound of dirt, kind of peeping over, trying to see if I can see where these guys are at. And there's all kinds of brush and shit around there. So about 15 minutes later, Jay shows up. He's got no shoes on. His kneecaps are like completely disjointed from his knees. He's climbing up this hill. He's got his badge and his gun in his hand. And he's like, motherfuckers. And he goes, I quit. And he fucking hands me his shit. And I go, right now? I go, they're still out there. He goes, I don't give a fuck. He goes, this is 2 times. He goes, I'm fucking, he goes, I quit, man. And I'm like, no, not right now, bro. I go, how about we do this? How about we get these guys? I get you over to the hospital and you quit later. He's like, fine. So the cavalry comes, we get a perimeter set up, we have to catch the guys. I end up back in the, I get Jay back and I drive him to the hospital. Well, Jay had actually shot the guy that was shooting at us. Jay actually shot him in the shoulder. And so this guy gets taken to the hospital. So I'm pushing Jay around in the wheelchair as he's getting x-rays and shit and talking to the surgeon and stuff. And so the bad guy's laying on the fucking table, and he's got the bullet wound in his shoulder. So the trauma surgeon comes out. He goes, "Hey fellas," he goes, "come here a minute." And the guy's gangster disciples laying out there, and he points to where the bullet hole is, his shoulder. He goes, you guys got to get back to the range more, man. Bad fucking shot placement. He goes, you need to come down here a little bit closer. And so the bad guy's on the day. He goes, man, why the fuck do you want to do me like that? So we're just like, hey, really, it's not personal. He goes, oh no, hey, not personal, fellas, not personal. He goes, that's just the way it was. And we're like, okay, it's all good. So it was just funny. So that was the day Jay quit. So
we got sandbagged on that one, Murph. We're going to have to bring him. We're going to have to call him back.
Oh yeah, that was a good one. But that was just, you know what though, it's when you work with people in that group, and that can be said for all those guys that I worked with, Jay and all the other guys that are in the advanced undercover program and stuff, just such a good, just take care of each other. Just a good group of guys, man.
One of the things that we've tried to explain to our listeners, Chris, is the brotherhood in law enforcement and right. The sisterhood as well, because sure, the females absolutely. Are involved just as much as the guys are. And it's, you try to explain it when Javier and I are doing our shows, when you're on stage, you're trying to explain where my partner in 1989 was shot. We've had him on the show several episodes ago. He survived, got hit twice with 45 caliber slugs. Informant was killed. But it's hard to explain that when you've been through multiple life or death situations with the same person and or group of people and you survive, it's closer than being a biological brother or sister.
And the violence associated with the act. Yeah.
Yep. And my wife, when I first started dating her, I was already a cop. I was a city cop. And then she went through the railroad police and then the federal agent stuff. And it still amazes her to this day when, I can go I can go years without seeing Kevin or some of the other people I've worked with throughout my career. And you sit down, it's just like you were having a beer together last night. You just continue the conversation. She's like, how do you guys do that? It's just.
Well, and that was interesting talking with Kevin is that was the first time you and Kevin had ever sat down and actually talked about it.
It was. Wow. And you know what? We remember things differently, even though we're both right there in the same room getting shot at.
Yeah. People don't understand it either. Like when ATF used to, their shooting review guys were internal affairs guys. They had no experience with reviewing a shooting. They don't know about audio exclusion. They don't know about tunnel vision. They don't know about things slowing down. So they I think in Jay's where he got taken hostage, there was like, well, your supervisor says this. And Jay's like, well, I'm saying this. He goes, well, he didn't see it that way. It's like, hey, fucker, nobody sees shit the exact same way. When you get tunnel vision, to exclude everything fucking outside what you're focused on.
And your time dimensions are completely skewed.
Absolutely.
It's all strange.
And the other thing too is I, as a detective, taking a few statements on bank robberies or aggravated assaults or robberies. When you ask somebody to describe the weapon, you know how many times a 22 was described as a 6-inch Colt 45?
Like a howitzer.
Yeah,
like a cannon. It was a howitzer on wheels. It was pointed at me. It doesn't take away from their action. That's what they perceived, or that's what they've come away with, and that's why eyewitness descriptions are always. But when you're there, when it's first person. The other thing too is it's as a side, just a quick side story, but you can go onto YouTube and find a lot of these videos of dumbass robbers who walk into a convenience store. They're so focused on robbing it, they walk right past a cop in uniform and walk up to the counter and pull out the gun. And then he's surprised when the cop screws a gun in his ear and goes, son, you're going to jail. Where did you come from? You walked right past me.
Right.
Or when a robber walks into a cop bar.
Yeah, right. Sticks that place up.
What an idiot.
Yeah, which is most, any bar in Boston or Chicago, you walk in there and it's kind of like, we're going to have a little problem here, lads.
Yeah.
So,
that's funny.
Well, so, hey, Chris, let's now take this to the next one you wanted to talk about too, which I thought is an interesting name too. So, Gideon, let's talk about this. When does Operation Iron Horse finally wrap up? When you are just done, there is no mas.
It would have been about 97. I think it was 97 when the indictments came down. And then I helped a little bit with Cindy DeVolcaneer was an ATF agent in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and she had done a RICO on the Outlaws. Actually, she did 2 RICOs on the Outlaws and knocked those guys out. So I helped a little bit with that case. So probably 97 was the end of that, the biker stuff. And then no real, I did we did the Hells Angel RICO, and that lasted till about 2004. We took that one off.
So when does Gideon start? And tell us, let's start setting some context now for Gideon.
Well, it started out with Phoenix, Arizona. This is about 2009. They were getting, it was not murder capital, but it was kidnap capital of the world, because cartel guys would bring dope over, and then people would follow the load over, go to a stash house. Before they could break the load down and transfer it, guys would go in and hit the stash house and kill everybody and steal the cocaine. But the bad guys aren't like law enforcement, where they do a little more due diligence to make sure there's actually dope in the house before they do a warrant. These guys were just hitting stuff they even thought might be a stash house. So they'd run in on families and they'd hold them at gunpoint and say, okay, you don't have any drugs, but order up a kilo, or we know somebody, or they'd kidnap them and demand money from the families. So we were running this investigative technique in Miami, Florida, and it was home invasion reverses. And so we act like drug couriers, and we would take guys that were actively participating in drug robberies or any type of robbery, violent acts, and we'd provide them an opportunity to participate in our drug robbery, just basically provide an opportunity to commit a crime, which is not entrapment.
See, I was about to ask that. Let's be very clear, because that is going to be key to one of the things we talk about later, because one of the judges talked about, some of the operations you guys did. He said they called it like entrapment. Let's be clear about what entrapment is and what entrapment isn't, because you have to be very clear, especially when you're doing law enforcement operations. You can provide somebody an opportunity, but but to avoid entrapment, how did you guys go about doing that?
Well, we just provide the opportunity. We provide nothing more. And so basically what you have, in criminal activity, you've got the criminal mind, or the mens rea. You've got the criminal mind, and then you have an opportunity. All right. So when an opportunity to commit a crime is fucking met up with a criminal that has a predisposition to commit the crime, that's basically when you have crime. So we only provide one part of that that equation, and that's the opportunity. So we tell them I'm a drug courier, disgruntled. There's 50 keys in a particular location. It's guarded by 3 or 4 stash house robber guards or stash house guards that are armed, and that I want to rip them off, but I don't have the people or the moxie myself to do it. So I'm looking for killers, and the only people that readily avail themselves of this are people that have the connections within the criminal community to get rid of cocaine, because cocaine's illegal. So an unwary innocent that might be duped on this allegedly is not going to have the connection in the criminal community to turn that cocaine into cash. It's only appealing to people that are willing to be killed or kill for profit. So that you're taking no John Q. Public is going to come anywhere close to this, and then on top of that, you got to worry about the cartel coming back on you for stealing their dope. And cartels are notorious for their retaliatory acts against people that have crossed them. So you've got that in. So this opportunity, again, is only, it people that avail themselves, again, are only people that are really in the criminal community, that are willing to be killed for profit. And those are the guys that are the violent people in the community, the pariahs in the community that extort their community. We've gotten after we've taken down a lot of these cases, we get letters from the community thanking us for removing this guy and asking for the maximum possible sentence for him because he's such a pariah in their community. So they go a long way to actually saving lives, in my opinion. But we got some pushback from the chief judge in Chicago on it. Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about him in a second, but that's why I wanted to be clear about this, because this is not like you're driving down a street, you see Joe Bob walking there, say, "Hey, Joe Bob, hop in a vehicle, hand him a gun, shove him into a bank, say, go rob this place." That's a little different. But when Joe Bob is a known bank robber and he hears you talking about robbing banks, he says, "Hey, I'd like to help you guys," and you go, "Okay." There's a huge difference there.
And that's what a lot of ways we show the predisposition is by their criminal history. And then we have conversations with these guys that show their predisposition. I say, "Have you ever done this before?" "We do this all the time. We hit licks. We just killed 4 people on the South Side, a week ago. That's what we do. We're killers. We're going to kill everybody. And generally they're going to kill you." So it's that conversation that doesn't come from some unwary innocent person that just got, duped or we just ran up on.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Entrapment, it's not entrapment if they're already predisposed to commit the crime. They've got a pattern and history of doing it. And like you say, all you've given them is one half of the equation, which is just the opportunity. They already had the state of mind. So
yep.
Right.
That kind of sets the cursor, the precursor now for Gideon. So let's talk about Gideon. Where was this idea born, or how did it come about?
My partner he's part of the undercover program, Richie Zayas. He's a great friend and a great undercover agent. Probably one of the best in the country, no doubt. When we were talking about the problems they were having in Phoenix, we kind of came up with the idea, like, what if we just take a bunch of guys that are doing these home invasion scenarios? We'll take 4 or 5 UCs, we'll augment with maybe a couple agents from the groups, and let's just hit it hard out there. We'll just keep doing it. So within it didn't take us more than 60 days. We probably had 70 crews wrapped up in that amount of time. Like, no shit for real bad guys.
How did you identify them? Where did you get the intel? How did you know that these were the right crews doing it?
So we went out to the local law enforcement, and because they're investigating these crimes, and we're like, "Look, when you talk to and even law enforcement in general, and even ATF agents, we interview a guy that we arrest, like, tell us about, like, guys that are dealing guns or dealing dope. We don't tell us about a guy that's doing an armed robbery. Tell us about a guy that's actually doing stick ups." So that's what we started doing. We started talking to the informants and the defendants that we had arrested in other crimes, said, "Who do you know is doing armed robberies?" Like, "Oh, well, these guys are the stick up boys." "All right, well, introduce us." So we go to the stick up boys, provide them that opportunity. And, probably 6 out of 10 times they availed themselves of that opportunity and did the crime.
This is a lot different than penetrating, the Grim Reaper Club, because there is by its very nature, this is already a violent activity that takes place on a regular basis, right? So, how do you go about now planning this too? Because you mentioned earlier, said there were some shootouts, there were some things that happened. It got pretty hairy. So,
Sure.
Let's talk about that. So, as you start working this, do you have you got a target list that says these are our prime targets, like these are the worst of the worst, and work your way down?
We go generally. It's a lot of these guys are self-identified through other cases. So agents that were working in Phoenix at another case ran into a guy that says, "I do robberies," or "I do stick-ups," or again, like you just said, there wasn't like a list of names per se. These guys, it's as we were able to, as we started getting into that criminal community that does licks, then it's the more names and people started to avail themselves to us, and so we would step to those guys, and we used informants, informants in Phoenix, and we also imported informants. We go to different areas where we knew like cartel guys were hanging out, whether it's strip club or particular bar that we knew a lot of. La Familia Michoacan or Sinaloa guys were hanging out, we'd send our guys there. Now, you had to be careful because you don't want to tell some Sinaloa guy you're going to be robbing his drug stash house or that you're a courier. So you had it was a very delicate way that we had to actually sell ourselves to those guys. But there was that underlying element that was robbing the shit out of these guys. And the Sinaloa guys, I mean, you look to the narco wars in between the Cubans and the Colombians in Florida when you were starting doing the job with DEA. Those guys are robbing each other and stealing each other. They were buying dope like we would and then go hit the house, follow the guy back to where his stash was, and then go rob him. So they did it the same way we did. And so our story of stash houses and how they operate are exactly how a stash house operates.
So let's talk about the name Gideon, because that has a very biblical reference. And there's actually something associated with that too. We'll talk about. But how did you? Every operation has to have a name. I think you just got to have a name, right? It just can't be Operation B. So how did you come up with Gideon?
It was Richie Zayas, who is we call him the non-practicing Catholic, but his brother is a priest. And so, and Richie's very, he went to Catholic school. He always reminds us that, the reason he can spell and write good reports is that he didn't go to some flunky public school. He went to a Catholic, it's good Catholic education he got. So, Richie, he knows the Bible. So he said, you know what, this is a lot like Gideon was when God told Gideon to go get, I forget which sect they were fighting against. But he said the Gideon army, God kept slashing it in half and making it smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and said, now go get these 100 million guys and take them down. So he said, that's kind of what we're up against. We only got 3 or 4 undercover guys augmented with, maybe 3 case agents. And you're doing Gideon's work, man. You're going after the worst of the worst and the worst neighborhoods and the worst parts of the country, and you're whipping a game on them. So he modeled it after the Gideon part. Now Richie also has, to his credit, doesn't go to church, but he does have the prayer of contrition, which I don't know if you guys are Catholic. Apparently, I'm not that familiar with it. So Richie said, if I ever get shot and I'm going to die, he goes, you got to get this fucking prayer out of my wallet because we got to say it because I got to get absolved of all my shit and sins before I freaking go to heaven. He goes, so fuck the ambulance. He goes, you get this prayer card out. We got to fucking do that right away before I go. I'm like, okay. All right. So that was Richie's master plan.
Well, the reason I said that is there was a movie made about the 72 Olympic massacre in Munich. And the Israelis mounted an operation. Now, a lot of people have confused it. They said it was called the Sword of Gideon. That was actually the movie name. The real operational name was Wrath of God. That was the one. That was the real operation. But they turned it into a movie. Rod Steiger was in it, the original one. But that's where it was Sword of Gideon. Yeah, it was visiting vengeance, small group of guys to go back after the ones that killed the Israeli athletes. And as a kid growing up, I remember watching that on TV, watching the coverage. And I remember who was the guy from ABC, Jim or something or other. He just comes on, he says, they're dead. They're all dead. I mean, it was just like one of the most poignant memories I ever had of watching TV back then.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, that's Richie's the same. Yeah, and so that was it. He felt like, you know what, we're in the righteous, we're in the right. This is what we're doing. We're out, fighting evil. And he goes, he thought it was very fitting.
So how big was so you said your team was small. How big was the total team working Gideon?
The Phoenix one starting out, I think there was probably 7 to start with. And then as it started gaining traction and we were making good arrests and knocking down good guys, they gave us some more people. So it ended up being about 9 or 10, I think, at the end. But every takedown was done with an SRT element. All the arrests were done with SWAT guys. We always had a couple of SWAT guys with us when we were doing deals. We always had like a SWAT medic, our medics are great. We have a great medic program in ATF. Love those guys. They're very competent, capable fucking medics, man. They're excellent. So we had all those guys working together with us on these operations.
And how long did Operation Gideon go? What was your time frame?
The first one, usually we try to go 3 months because you can't do it that hard. We were doing, like I said, you do up to 14 deals in one day, which if you can imagine a regular undercover deal to go buy something, you got the cover team in place, you got the undercover, you got the electronic surveillance, you got the buy money, you got the paperwork in advance. And so we had our own separate standalone warehouse where we would just rotate the UCs through. We had a big ink board, or not erase board, whatever it's called, or erase board, and we would just put deals up. Hey, informant called, he's got this set up, we'll go do it. These guys identified, we're going to go deal with these guys. So we're running and gunning constantly. And even if we had a shooting, we were right back doing a deal the next day. It never stopped.
Well, let's talk about that too, because again, the non-sexy part of this work is, I mean, there's a lot of operational planning going on, but there's also paperwork that has to be done, evidence that has to be logged. So, for every one deal that you did, kind of give us a breakdown. It would take you, for example, like it would take us an hour to do the deal and 3 hours to do paperwork. What kind of trade-off did you have between the time it took to do the deal and the time it took to catalog, and record the deal?
We set up a great system. So you would come in from your deal, you'd download the electronic surveillance. The undercover would sit down, he would write his report, he'd listen to the deal, he would write his report. Another agent would take the evidence that we purchased. If there was evidence purchased, he'd go ahead, log it in. We had a temporary vault set up. We'd immediately cut 3 copies of the electronic surveillance, which is the audio video of the deal. 3 copies went into a particular file. 1 copy was immediately sent to the United States Attorney's Office for them to review. So within 30, 40 minutes of us doing a deal, the U.S. Attorney had an actual copy of that specific undercover deal. So they could say right away, hey, yes on this guy, no on this guy, a copy of his criminal history. It was really, really well done. And it was built for speed. So we maximized our time.
So were your reports more like saw drunk, arrested same?
No, actually, no, they're not. But it's like we said, as you became an undercover agent later, you said less. So it was basic, the who, what, when, where, and why. And it was the key phrases that were said. Whatever evidence we got was discussed. Those things were put into play. And you got very astute at cranking your paper out. Our paper seriously was tight.
I'm telling you, I'm jealous too, because you remember those days too, as you'd arrest somebody and you'd be down there doing your probable cause affidavit and stuff. They'd beat you out of jail. They'd bond out faster than you could get your paperwork done.
Yeah. Well, most of our situation was buy walk. So we would buy it, let the bad guy go. So we weren't, we had speedy trial issues, or we had to get them in front of the judge the next day. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But there is no buy walk on a murder, right? Somebody commits a murder. It's like, you kind of got to pick them up right then. So
yeah.
Well, let's talk about some of these hairy situations, because you had the medics, you had your SRT teams, your special response teams. Let's talk about a couple of the situations that went south and why they went south, and why there was lead flying through the air.
Well, they went south because a lot of times the bad guys have a vote. For all our planning and preparation, and as slick as the undercovers are guys, sometimes the guys are like, we just don't like you right now, and we're going to kill you. I mean, the guys we were doing were, honestly, it's a catchphrase, but they were the worst of the worst. So the chances of these guys jerking a pistol and deciding to go to work at some point was pretty much every deal that we were doing. So, we eventually, what we do, and to kind of back up, but to talk a little bit about how we got to, it comes down to training again too. It's what we talked about earlier. Like, our undercover guys train with our SRT guys, and we could talk about that later or now if you'd like to, but our SRT guys are on a set. They know what to expect from the undercover guys because we train together. We have multiple repetitions of agent rescue. So when our guys got robbed, or they had the gun screwed in their head, or they were actively engaged in a gun battle, they knew what to expect from their SRT guys, and they acted accordingly. And our SRT guys knew what to expect from undercovers as they rolled up on a set to try to effect the arrest or save these guys' lives. So all that worked. It goes back to that working together as a team, and that training component is so fucking vitally important. We fortunately.
Well, let's talk about that real quick, because that didn't happen overnight. You were saying earlier too, in the old days, it used to be the SRT says, well, you got to stand here, you got to act this, stand on this X, and the UC guys are going, hey man, we've got to be flexible. As the Air Force says, flexibility is the key to air power. But to overuse a military term, your battle plan never survives contact with the enemy, right? So,
correct.
Right. How did that come about? How did that come about, changing the training? What did you start identifying that says, hey, especially for stuff like Gideon, you've got to have a flexible, fluid type of approach to this, because a static one will get somebody hurt or killed.
Right. It ended up being, there was such a butting of heads of the SRT mentality and the undercover. The undercover is like, you got to be flexible. And the SRT guys, we can't effectively cover you with that type of flexibility. So we started working on scenarios. So we got together finally. We came up with some protocols, and our first training was, I think, in 2004 or 5, was in New York City, where NYPD trains. They've got like a mock-up of city buildings and things like that. And we just started running through scenarios, and we'd go, okay, this was a rip or a robbery. Here's how you guys reacted. Here's what the undercover did. And we started chopping it up. We're like, how did the UC feel? What could the UC do better to facilitate the entry of the coverage, or the SRT guys element, and the effective use of a sniper, RFOs. Man, I've got some personal friends. At Matt Garecki's a great friend of mine. He was our sniper on our team, and Ford Observer or snipers that are on our SRT team. So in a lot of situations, we were able to incorporate those guys into a takedown, or incorporate those guys into a meet location, where when you have the ability, when your sniper, like Matt Garecki and I always laugh together. He goes, I could see the fucking vein popping out of your neck as you were talking, or I could see your pulse in your forehead, shit like that. But knowing that you have a guy that is going to dispatch this jag off with extreme prejudice if it goes to shit, gives you that extra ability to maybe get that conversation more that you need, and gives you that little extra comfort. So we always work on, in our scenarios, kind of moving the role player or the bad guy around, so that sniper's got the best shot if it goes to shit. Because if that guy decides to jerk his shit, go to work, I can't get my shit reaction out fast enough to probably do it. But I know Matt Garecki on that 308 is going to pop that guy's head like a zit.
1/10 of a second to pull that trigger that he's already got the scope zeroed in on that guy.
Exactly. So it gives you that. So when we started working that, man, it just, for me personally, and I was on our SWAT team, so I understood what those guys were talking about, but we really had to come together for the Gideon operations, because, the bad guys vote a lot of times. They change it up. They might change a location. So, the SRT guys, unless the bad guy can show up at this location, we're not doing it. You got to call the deal off. Well, that's just not realistic. So what we would do, we'd scope out 10 locations. Like when we were in St. Louis, we'd have 10 locations. So if the bad guy said here, we'd say our location. The bad guy say, no, I want you to do it over here. We'd say, nah. And then we'd move it to another one of our 10 locations that we already got an out plan for. And so our guys immediately knew the long lats of that spot. And so for our team to pick up, our cover team to pick up and roll out, our SRT guys to then get busy at that second location, then it worked out great and we had no problem. So it was once we got that fluidness and they understood our point of view and what to expect from us, and they trusted us, and we trusted them, man, they're just a great team, man. I really enjoyed it. Even when I did the undercover for the FBI and stuff, they were like, you use our SRT element. I said, hey, no disrespect to your guys, but I work with my guys every day. And it's all the same to you guys, would it be okay if those guys did it? And they're like, yeah, no problem. they understood. So yeah, so that training, that component, and every one of our guys that was in a bad situation, to a man, came out of it and said, man, you know what? That training saved my life. That training got me where I needed to be.
Hey, well, let's talk about a piece of that training too, because firearms is a huge piece of this training. So, ATF has their standard firearms, but when you were UC, what kind of firearms did you carry? Because if you're carrying a standard government issue firearm and somebody sees it and they go, hey, that's what ATF carries, or did it matter? I mean, if you had a SIG or if you had a Beretta, did it matter?
You know what? In the Wild Wild West, depending on where you're at, like I carried a 5-shot Smith & Wesson everywhere I went. I carried it in the front. I practiced all sitting down. I practiced drawing in the car, practiced drawing. So I had that muscle memory. So I carried a 5-shot and that was it. And I always worked with a group or a team. So I knew that within probably no more than a minute, these guys are going to be on the set taking care of what needs to be taken care of. So all I got to do is I just got to tie this guy up for that minute until the cavalry comes. Right. Exactly right. And so, when you get used to that, I didn't really need to carry. I felt like a SIG that had 16 rounds, or anything like that. So I just carried a 5-shot, 38, and that was my piece.
Did you have to deploy it ever?
The 5-shot during an undercover deal. Yes, I've had it out, but the SRT guys were Johnny on the spot, so they kind of laughed at me.
Your little girl gun, you got a little tiny puny gun.
I go, I'm sorry, it's just memory. A guy's fucking jerking his shit. I'm gonna, They're like, we're already here and you got 2 FOs. I'm like, I know. Just, give me, just
sounds
let me
like
make it.
Hans and Franz. Here you are with your puny little gun, little girly man,
Exactly. Yeah, they were laughing.
That is old school, man. A 5-shot wheel gun.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, jerk my wheel gun out. You got a guy with an M4 and frickin' 308 and a frickin' helicopter. They're like, okay, Chris. Funny. They're like patting me on the back. Oh, it's okay, old man.
The number of homicides I worked where somebody would attempted homicides where people would survive a shooting with the 45, but they would die on the spot from a 22.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah. There's no rhyme or reason for it, is there, man?
There is not.
That's what we say. You can shoot a bad guy and they survive. If a cop gets a paper cut, he's going to die from the infection.
I tell you, that's unfortunately that's a fact.
How do you go about making decisions then on is it just the 3-month time period, or because sometimes there's this kind of, it's this cognitive bias. It's like, I call it like being in Las Vegas. Just let me play the slot one more time. I'm close. Hey, we got one more group. We got to go after these guys. You feel like I don't want to leave something on the table there. How do you make that decision to finally wrap this thing all up and bring it to a close?
Because 3 months is about as much as anybody could take with all of us together working at that speed.
Otherwise, there might be some other homicides, right?
Correct. It's I love Richie, but I've never argued and loved somebody as much as I do with Richie, man. I mean, we're constantly, fuck you, that's a stupid idea. Fuck you, you Cuban motherfucker. I don't give a shit. What is Miami? When he first started, he came up from Miami when we first started on the job, and he gave some talk about undercover in Chicago. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? He's like a little, like his mannerisms were weird. I'm like, this guy, what does he know? He's in Miami. I'm in Chicago. Chicago's where it's at when it comes to violence. Fuck Miami. Well, of course, Miami was off the hook violent. And then, it was like through the 90s, everybody kind of was not at odds, but they were kind of, we were constantly trying to outdo the next undercover guy. And it wasn't until like the mid 90s, everybody realized, fuck, man, we got such a collective group of guys that have got such a monumental amount of work behind them. And that's when we started coming together and working in groups and working 2 or 3 UCs in one case, stuff like that. And it was so much better. It worked out so much better.
It's phenomenal. And just a little quick side story here, Chris. Before COVID, Javier and I got to speak at one of the advanced ATF undercover schools down in Savannah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And we were there just for entertainment. Had nothing to do with what you studs were doing. But, I mean, you talk about meeting a room full of characters. Holy cow. And most of them, I would never in my wildest dreams think that they were law enforcement.
We've got some guys, like I said, we got like Mark Demas. He looks like Satan incarnate. He's just sleeved out tattoos. He's a power lifter. He's just this monstrous, guy. But the nicest guy that ever walked the face of the earth. But man, I go and do deals with Mark. We call each other convict when we see each other because we've been locked up together in county jails to get next to somebody, and it never fails. We get locked up, we go to jail. Nobody wants to talk to him because they're afraid of him. Nobody's afraid of me. So I'm like, yeah, I'm his go-to guy, blah, blah, blah. But, guys would stay away from us because they were like, that dude's fucking Satan. I go, he is Satan.
Well, and that brings up another story. When I was in Miami, I was working undercover and we were trying to do some coke deals there. And I teamed up with an ATF undercover agent named Jim. I won't say his last name here, but
I know who you're talking about.
And we both, I don't know if he was from Tennessee or not, but he knew about Tennessee. And so our undercover story was that we were brothers and that he had escaped from prison in Tennessee. And nobody would screw with me because they were afraid Jim would kill him. It worked.
Hey, that's street theater and that stuff. And that's the reason undercover is so fun. We always say it's a bunch of frustrated actors. ATF undercover guys are a bunch of frustrated actors, prima donnas, but yeah, you're only limited by your imagination on this shit.
Here's an interesting factoid, and you know how I am with useless trivia, but we are recording this on St. Patrick's Day. By the way, I look like I'm the only motherfucker wearing green.
You want to see my
it's
underwear?
The high holy days. I celebrated this weekend.
Okay. Well, here's the interesting thing. Where is the second largest St. Patrick's Day parade in the United States?
Savannah,
Georgia. Chicago's first.
I called Lou this morning. I said, what are you doing? Because I could hear noise in the background. He said, I'm at the Savannah St. Patrick's Day parade.
We were in Savannah for an undercover conference, and it was the usual suspects, all the guys you saw, right? Okay, when you guys were in Savannah, it was the parade in Savannah, which is a big layout. I mean, it's huge. So we're all those undercover idiots, like 8 of us, go there, and we see this chef, and there's all these food and like a buffet thing set out. And we're like, this is so cool. Like, we're hungry and we're drunk. So we're like, we'll get something to eat. So we start getting in line and we're getting our food, and everybody's like helping us spoon food on our plates, and they're looking at us and smiling. And we get done, and I go, so who do we pay for this? They're like, what do you mean? I go, well, isn't this like paid buffet or some shit? They're like, actually, no, it's a private party. And we're like, well, why didn't you guys tell us? They're like, yeah, nobody's going to fucking tell you guys you can't eat here. We were just hoping you would take food and walk away. I was like, oh, so that was our St. Patty's Day and freaking Savannah.
That's where you brought Mark and Lou and the spawns of Satan to say, hey, we're going to get some food. Anybody got a problem? Okay, so we're bringing this to a close. So let's talk about this. So like, again, it's like, how do you it's 3 months, you just got to call it, right? No matter what's going on, you got to wrap things up.
Right. So, barring any other foreseen circumstance, we're unless all of a sudden you've got Al Capone on the hook, it's like no. So 3 months was about it. We'd wind down. We'd do a roundup if we didn't arrest along the way. Most of the time, we would arrest people as we went along. So we would knock it down, and then of course you got court. So we would be down for probably 6 months, and then we would be planning the next Gideon for the next location. We'd be scouting that out, going to do the advance work on it, getting to know who the layout is, who's who in the zoo, that kind of thing. And then same group of people, we'd be out that next summer to the next Gideon. So yeah.
How much money was getting ripped on a lot of these stash house robberies? I mean, what was there just dope? Was there just money, or was there dope and money?
Ours, for the ones in Phoenix, the actual ones that were going on, it was both. It was money and dope were getting stolen. The ones that we do, we just say there's just dope in the house. Money's transferred a different way. So it's just straight up drugs in the house when they go in. But there are 3 armed guards.
Because you see these pictures too of where they find a stash house, and that thing, there's rooms just stacked with cash. I mean, what was one of the largest stash houses you heard of getting ripped?
God, the drug dealers never really tell you when they get ripped. That was one of the things about these guys. When they got ripped off, they handled their own. But we know that there's been ones where they've gotten, bad guys have told us before, they've gotten $2 million out of a rip on a lick, where it was a dope house where money's getting ready to go back over the border. We got one just on a fluke in Phoenix. We were doing the home invasions, and Richie met a guy at a bar that said he wants some weed, and Richie. So we were just standing there, we're like, let's just go see where he's at. We'll get a warrant. So Richie goes into his house and kind of on the outskirts of Phoenix, comes out, and he goes, they got at least fucking 800 pounds of weed in there. And we're like, all right. So we got to Phoenix PD, we got a warrant. So we're outside cover, and Phoenix SWAT goes in and hits the house, right? So the bad guy, jumps out a window and jumps over the fence next door. And next door, the guy had chickens and horses and stuff. The guy jumps on a horse, no saddle, grabs the mane of the horse, and jumps back over the fence onto the street in front of where we're parked, because we're watching all this show, and the SWAT guys are around and shit. And he just flips off everybody and rides away. And we were like, fuck, should we chase that guy? And Richie's like, no, let's let that guy go. That goes fucking awesome. We ended up getting him later, but we're like, how often do you see it? But he ended up with, there were 10,000 pounds of weed. And I think about,
oh, wow.
Yeah. But we didn't see all the rooms. We just saw the room in front, but every room, it was just stacked floor to ceiling.
Can you imagine that radio call coming out, car, whatever unit, Adam 12, I'm in pursuit. Describe what a chestnut full? I don't know,
He's in a Mustang. What kind of Mustang?
I think Palomino. I think the fact that he flipped us off, though, was so fucking perfect. You're on a horse, no saddle. Yeah, I don't think he had shoes on. And he's just like, "Fuck you guys," and we're like, "Right on."
The only thing missing is yippee-ki-yay.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
That's right. Which, by the way, was one of our greatest movies we ever reviewed. It's the greatest Christmas movie of all time. Die Hard.
No doubt about it.
But you know what? You got to process 10,000 pounds of weed. That's a freaking nightmare.
We did, and it was a state warrant, bro. So that was we went back to the fucking bar. So that wasn't us. So it was a state. Man. Thank God.
We'll testify later, but hey, you guys got to handle all the evidence. By the way, when you've had enough dope in a room like that, you do get contact highs or non-contact highs, because that stuff in there just, oh my God. You come out, you come out of there and you go, hey, you got any Cheetos? We got some.
I'm hungry.
Why are your eyes lit? Yeah.
Why are your eyes glazed? Yeah, anyway. Hey,
dude, I don't know.
Well, how long did you work these Gideon operations?
From probably '05 till I retired. I think it was about I think I participated in every other one. Richie did every one that was on. It was kind of his baby. So he went to pretty much all of them. And it's one of those things. I think after a while, I had an incident in Cleveland on the Gideon in Cleveland, and it just kind of brought it all. I was like, you know what, it's time.
You can't
It's
throw
time.
that out there without talking about it. So, what was the incident?
I think it was just one where, and it wasn't even a big deal. I was buying about, a guy had 8 guns, gangbanger, 3 or 4 time convicted felon. He was with 4 of his boys. I pulled my undercover truck back up to the backside of his house. He comes out and he's got the guns in a bag and he's just standing there. And I go, that's cool. So I turned to open up the truck and he pulled a 45 out and cocked it and he had it up at my face. And when I turned around, it's such a personal thing when someone's that close to you that does that, and he just had those eyes, that I thought, oh, fuck, this is it. And this happened in about 3 seconds worth of fucking time. And I thought, this is it. Cleveland, Ohio. I'm going to meet it in Cleveland, fucking Ohio, And so that thought kind of went through my mind. And then he's like, money. And I go, well, what are we going to do here? We're going to fucking, you're going to jerk that, what are we going to do? We're going to continue to do business or is this it? And so the guy kind of looks at me and he lets the hammer go forward. He starts laughing. I count the money out. I end up buying that pistol off him. So I get on the truck and, honestly, it's a nothing deal. I mean, it really was a nothing deal. And for some reason, and I don't know why, we got back to the offsite. I was like, even the informant goes, that's trippy. I thought he was going to fucking smoke you. I'm like, we're laughing like, yeah, no big deal. Because we did, we had been through that quite often throughout, our careers. It's just because we're dealing with guns. But for some reason, man, that was just kind of that death by 1,000 paper cuts. So it took, I got home and nothing was really wrong. And I don't think it started to catch up for about 6 or 7 months after, or about 5 months after that. And then I was shit at home. I said, I'm retiring. I got out at 56 rather than waiting another year. And I just came to realize that it was because of that incident. All these other times of having to go in and save my friends, it just,
no, it's the moment of reality. Yeah.
It's just that cumulative effect. Yeah. So, and again, it was nothing. And it's that what got me. I was always in the peer support for ATF, and I ended up talking to a friend of mine from the Illinois State Police, and he was like, "Man, you got to talk to somebody." So he put me in touch with this Marla Friedman. She was the International Chiefs of Police psychiatrist, PhD. I went to talk to her, and man, cleared that shit up in about 6 months, man. I went from having panic attacks, pacing in my basement, that heightened sense that something was fucking not right. And there's technique out there, and it's called prolonged exposure. It worked great for me. She put me in touch with this book called Touching the Dragon. And she goes, you'll get to a part in this book. And the book is written by a guy named James Hatch. He's a Navy SEAL. And it's called Touching the Dragon. And she goes, you're going to get to a part in the book. She goes, call me when you get there. She'll know it. So I get the book and I'm reading it and I'm going through it. And it's a great book. And, the guy, a Navy SEAL, got shot in the leg during one of their operations. He was out, he's no longer going to be a SEAL. He was having all these issues and stuff. And I get to the part in the book, page 208. It talks about shame. And that was exactly what I was feeling at the time, because Jay Dobbs, one of my best friends, man, he got shot 14 days on the job. He's still out there fucking doing it. All my friends, my Bruce Dookie, who we went and rescued during one of the Gideon operations, he's in the middle of a gun battle, and he's calm as fucking can be on the fucking tape. Hey, Chris, he's from Kansas City. Hey, they're jerking their shit. It's a robbery. You guys come on in and get them. Then they started shooting. They're shooting at me now. Listen, I'm gonna pull up and go to the left. You guys come in on the right. Just everyday shit. And I was like, this jagoff that got me in the alley, he didn't even fucking shoot me. I just pulled the fucking gun out. I go, why? And so it's that shame component. I had no idea what it was. And so since then, it's been just a total eye opener for all that stuff. Because you don't know, after 30 years of shit, You don't know what incident, and it might be next to nothing that fucking ends up touching it off. So I got with her, and she's plugged me into. We've done kind of a ad hoc peer support for people that she's run into that might need a peer or somebody to talk to from the law enforcement side that doesn't really want to talk to a PhD. So I've done that for her. Teamed up with another guy. They run Cornerstone Retreat, which is like a 40 acres out in Western Illinois that they're developing, bringing families out of, first responders that have gone through, they're having problems and issues, and a lot of it affects families. So it's real happy to be in that right now. I really feel like that's it's been a good segue of getting out of it and now kind of doing some of that. It really makes me feel good.
Well, it's a form of therapy for you, but it's also you're continuing to give back, which is that's what law enforcement does, and that's the reason we bring people like you, Chris, on Game of Crimes to start with, is to educate the world of the commitment, the professionalism, the expertise, the bravery, the sacrifices, the dedication to duty, all those all those adjectives that describe what law enforcement does, and even in retirement, you're still giving back, man. So just God bless you. I'm so proud of you just for bringing that
thanks,
up.
Man. I appreciate that very much. I appreciate that much.
And you can tell it touches an emotion with you. I mean, I'm getting freaking goosebumps here just talking to you about it. It's phenomenal.
No, it's a hard thing, and I don't want any, there's help out there, and I've talked to military guys, I've talked to law enforcement guys, and it's all the same, man, that, and nobody should struggle like that by themselves, man. There's plenty of help, plenty of people to help. There are techniques they come up with now with EMDR. They do a combination of EMDR and prolonged exposure. There's shit that can really help your mind sort through that shit in pretty short order and get you back to feeling good, because you don't want your family suffer. And we talk about that, and everybody in law enforcement does. You always wonder how much to tell your kids, how much to tell your family about what you do. I had an interesting conversation with my daughter years later. I said, I go, what were your thoughts back in the day when things were really touching off and I was gone, all that stuff? She goes, I used to, because I was divorced, I'd have them on every other weekend and Wednesdays. And so Wednesdays, I'd get them early from school and I'd take them back to the ATF office. And so they would do their homework in the conference room, and then I would do paperwork or we'd go out and do deals. So they got to know everybody that I worked with, and they became like surrogate uncles to my kids. So talking to my daughter later in life, I'm like, what did you guys think? She goes, after we started meeting like Joey, and Sweet Lou, they call him Uncle Lou, and we got to know these guys, and we knew that if you needed anything, these guys would help you.
Family.
So it gave me that like confidence of like, okay, you're not out there by yourself doing something. I don't have to worry about you because you got Joey, you got Lou, you got, Bird, you got all these friends of yours that I know are so they love us like they love you, So I think for her, I think that camaraderie, that stuff that you weren't by yourself, I think that was it gave her some solace.
Hey, Chris, let's go back to Cleveland for just a sec. Is that the closest you've ever come, you think? Or was there another situation, or was this just like you say, the culmination of a death of 1,000 cuts? Because, I mean, you've been in situations right before too where somebody's pointed something at you or done something. Why was this one so different?
I don't know. Probably because it was so personal. Because I was probably an arm's length away from the guy. I could see his eyes. I could see his emotion. I almost felt like I could see what he was thinking. I could smell him. It just, all those, it was just so fucking personal. And I was like so pissed off. Like the shooting with Jay, I mean, we were getting shot at, I mean, I guess it just didn't affect on the personal level. The times when I went to save, like times we would save other agents, like when we'd have to go in and get like, Jason in St. Louis or Bruce Stuckey in another one 14 days later in St. Louis on those incidents, driving into an active gun battle. And so, you just did it. You did how you were trained, and, unfortunately we got out of it good. But those didn't, for some reason, I think it was so fucking personal to see that guy's eyes, and he had the ups, and he had that fucking look on his face like, I got the ups, motherfucker. I'm in charge of this thing. I'm going to dictate how this is going to go. And like in my mind, I'm like, hey, fuck you. I'm screaming at the top of my head, fuck you. I'm not going to fucking kneel. I'm not doing anything. I'm going to give you the money. Fucking you do what you got to do. I'm not going to get on the ground. I'm not going to fucking turn on this guy. So it was just that shit. It was just so, I don't know, just personal. So I think that's the that's what made it so much, I don't know, worse.
And but you said that how long did that go from the time you saw it in your face until he put the gun away?
4 seconds. 4 seconds. But
But
you
it
know
seems
how
like a lifetime, doesn't it?
it does. The time slows down. I could tell you where the sun was in the sky. They had just cut the grass. That was what used to be one of my triggers, was cut grass a little bit. I'd get like, not just get a little more hyper vigilant. And I learned out later, I go, those are triggers, man. That's you're going to get triggered by certain things. There might be obnoxious, strange things that don't make any sense, but it kind of goes back to that. So that's why, you guys have such a great platform, man. If that's any one thing anybody gets out of this, I really want them to get the help that they need.
Well, that's the one thing we just want to say here, but normally we'd save this to the end, but this is such an important topic to all our law enforcement brothers and sisters that are listening to this, or family members, or first responders.
Or first responders, absolutely. Fire, EMS, nurses, folks.
Don't hesitate to get counseling. I never got counseling after Kevin was shot. I don't have dreams anymore, but they continued for years and years. I was shell shocked for about a week or so. My wife was busting my chops. She slammed doors just to watch me duck under the bed, because she's kind of sick in the head too. But it's not a macho thing, and this is something that can negatively affect you the rest of your entire freaking life. So
absolutely,
if you don't get the counseling and you need it, you're a fool. Take advantage of what's out there, and if your agency doesn't support that, get the hell away from that agency.
Yeah,
you should become first.
Yeah, I've gotten guys that call up and say, "Man, I'm in a dark place, and I'm thinking about doing it." I'm going, "You know what, brother?" I go, "I'm going to see you right now. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow, you and I are going to go see Marla." I call up Marla, and I go, "It's on my dime. First one's on my dime." I go, "I'll take you by myself." I go, "I know you don't want to talk to anybody, but you just talk to me. But I want Marla to be there, and so we'll just do it that way." She calls it now. She calls it bring a friend, but it's just I go, "I'll pay for it on the first one." Yeah, I go, "I'll do the first one on me. Let me go."
I'll tell you what, and if folks haven't listened to our Joe Piersante episode with Joe, I don't know if you know Joe, do you, Chris?
I don't think so.
Joe was a DEA agent. He was shot through the head in Afghanistan through an operations there. Everybody thought he was dead. He's blind now, but I just saw he posted to Murph. He is going, I think in 19 weeks, he's going to another world championship bodybuilding competition. This guy is a beast, but he went through the same thing. He went through so here's a guy who was physically fit. He was a monster carrying the heavy machine guns. He came close. He had the gun in his mouth, was very close to doing it. He had a blind, so he's having to accept the fact that he will no longer, at least for the foreseeable future, be able to see again. So he's having to learn to adapt to be blind. He said the same thing, man. It's just kind of like you cannot hide these things. I mean, we've all had friends who have died in the line of duty. In fact, Chris, right? I think you said it. I think you said it while we were recording. You talked about when the Waco shoot happened with the David Koresh, and those guys down in Waco. One of those guys was a friend of yours.
Yeah. No, it's again, and I think the interesting thing is too. And I want people to understand this too. It's you don't have to be in a firefight as a law enforcement officer to have PTSD. You don't have to be shot in the head or take a round. And a lot of times, and for me, it was the fucking shame component. I'm like, all my friends have been through so much shit. And I got a guy that didn't even fucking shoot me. And I'm spinning on that. I go, I was like, the self-loathing was palatable. I was like, what kind of pussy are you, man? You didn't get shot. These other guys got fucking shot. They're okay. You didn't get shot. But it's that shame component that not a lot of guys had. The one guy that I took that was thinking about killing himself, he'd never been in a shooting, never drew his pistol in anger as law enforcement, but he's also been to how many baby deaths, how many tragic car accidents, how many suicides where the 15-year-old hung himself outside the kitchen window so his mom could see him out of some, and consoling that, dealing with man's inhumanity to man every day and seeing how evil's out there. And it exists and it's there. So you deal with that every day after 30 years and you wonder, man, I wonder why I'm having some fucking issues. Hey, man, it's death by 1,000 paper cuts, brother. You don't have to be in a shootout every other day to fucking have trauma.
And the reason I was bringing that up is I said we've all lost friends. I was not counting, but I mean, you kind of sit back sometimes in anticipation of this episode. And I was thinking, I've lost more friends to suicide than I have line of duty deaths. And one of them was a guy I used to work with. when I was a trooper, but he did the classical thing. He called, was saying his goodbyes, bringing closure to everything, and then he goes out into a field, puts a gun underneath his chin, and that's it. And this guy was on the job, and it's like, so I mean, there. But to your point too, there's a very real cost. I talked with some guys who they work child pornography cases, and after a
Exactly
couple
the
of
same.
years, they're
Yep.
like, "Man, I can't do this anymore. I cannot see this."
Yeah, the PhD that I work with, one of the things she does is all the task force guys that do the child exploitation.
Yep.
She's on those guys all the time, and there's a short period. It's like the Gideons, and of course it's not as intense, but it's only a short period of time you can function at that level, and then you got to step away from it because it just that affects your mind. Your mind tries to solve problems. That's what it's there for. It's solving problems for your life. And so when you get this trauma in your mind cannot find a place to file that or to make sense of it, then it spins and you get on that hamster wheel and it doesn't quit. Yeah, it's a terrible thing, man. It really is. But there is help. There is help out there.
No, and I'll tell you what, Steve, to your point too, you got to find the right people that was receptive to it. I remember there's two kind of calls you never want to get when you're a cop. One is officer down and the other one is baby not breathing. Those are usually the ones you don't want to get. And I got the baby not breathing and I show up and she happens to be the granddaughter of the secretary at our highway patrol. And instantly you go in there, you realize, hey, you got to start doing. I did CPR on an 18-month-old for 45 minutes.
Yeah,
we're at the hospital, bring her in there. She doesn't make it, right? And so first of all, you feel guilt and shame, and then you realize my daughter is just about the same age. And then I had some people, basically, I don't want to mention names or ranks, but you had people say, well, if it was me, I'd go back to work even if it was 50%. I'm going, I don't think you get it. I'm sitting here looking at going, as you're doing CPR, you're going, what if this was my daughter?
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's to your point too. It's that I took off work for 3 days. I actually had the lieutenant and the captain from the patrol office come out. I wanted to talk. I was apologizing for the fact that I couldn't save the kid.
Yeah.
Sure. Sure.
And to your point, it's that shame thing. It's like, why, but she was dead by the time she hit the floor. She had pneumonia. She had basically drowned sitting up. And then she fell over, and just, and the worst thing in the world, the worst part was, they brought the mother in, and then I could instantly hear when they gave the mother the news, because that is a cry only a mother makes.
Yeah. Sure.
Oh,
sure.
That's heart-wrenching.
So heartbreak. It's an absolute heartbreak, man.
Yeah,
I wrote an entire paper on that for when I was working on a degree for human resource management. They said, describe a concrete experience. And I said that it was called The Death of a Baby. And it's like, I still remember it to this day, writing that whole paper and everything. And I'm not, pardon me, it sounds like I'm trying to hijack what you're talking about. But to your point, everybody has something they go through. It doesn't always have to be a gun pointed at you. It could be something like that. Like you say, somebody, we had neighbors lose their daughter to suicide. The father comes home and finds her hanging in the closet,
Yeah.
And it's just the stuff that you have to go through. But where does this lead to? We don't want to stay dark here for too long, because this leads to, but for so long, and this gets into what are you doing now? For so long, talking about suicide was taboo in law enforcement. You didn't talk about it. You sucked it up.
Cupcake.
That's right, man. You just, real cops don't do stuff like that. And then what did we find out? Every year, and for a long time, almost 3 to 4 times more officers died from suicide, that's male and female, than line of duty deaths. So, Chris, I mean, where are we at with that now? I mean, how are we getting better with recognizing it, treating it? Are we still the same? What do you think?
Yeah, I would hope that we're making a difference on some level. I would hope that we see it for what it is on a management level, that this needs to be incorporated in all our training from the academy forward. The minute you start day one, your mental preparation for not only dealing with armed confrontations, but your mental preparation for what it is you're going to see, has to be installed. People say, well, you guys are cops. Well, you're trained to deal with all that stuff. Actually, you know what? There's no training when you come up on a child whose mom has decapitated her. I'm not sure what the training is you get that makes you okay with watching and looking at that scene. There is no training for that. It's how you recover from it. And it's knowing where to put those feelings and thoughts and emotions and how to deal with that. And the only people that can help you do that are people that have been there, people that understand how the brain works. And that's why, like a lot of these, like this one guy was going to, and I'm not down on social workers that are like, that help and do counseling and stuff like that. But man, you really do need you need a PhD, you need a doctorate that understands the physiology, that understands what the mental, how the components work. You need a greater understanding of how the mind works than you do just simply, a warm fuzzy or have nice catchphrases. You really got to get to somebody that really knows how to deal with it. And
Yeah, a hashtag on Twitter doesn't solve problems. I mean, it's like we've got to get. So let's talk about what you've been doing since then. So you punched out a year early, and I think a lot of people don't understand that distinction. 57 is usually mandatory retirement in federal service unless you get extended. So how many years did you have on by that point?
30 years. I was 56. I had 30 years in.
Okay. What did you decide? When you made that decision, what did you decide to do afterwards?
I sat on the couch for, I think I had 3 trials actually. After I retired, I still had 3 trials coming up: home invasion for the FBI, a murder, or 2 home invasions for the FBI, and a murder for hire that I'd done for the state police. So I was still kind of in the mix. So I still had a pass to the office. So I kind of weaned off it over the next 6 months. But then after a while, I didn't have informants calling me. No attorneys were calling me anymore. It was almost like I fell off the face of the earth. So it was kind of a stark realization of, wow, it is over. It's all done.
After you retire, it becomes Chris who, right? You feel like it's Chris
Yeah,
who?
right. Yeah, nobody cares anymore. What'd you do? You're just an old man now at Starbucks getting your fucking Jamocha coffee. You're not that big a deal. So it was a little bit of a transitional period from it. But my son bought a house that we needed to rehab, and I pretty much dove into that nonstop.
You got a little
man.
experience doing construction, don't you?
Correct. I did a lot of outlaw motorcycle gang clubhouses. So I did that with him. It was kind of a payback for all the years I was gone. I didn't teach him how to bend a nail, so now he knows how to bend a nail and do electric and stuff. So that was good. But it was good too because I got to talk to a lot of the guys he works with, and and getting his experiences every day, and stuff, and make sure he's sleeping right, and the stuff that he's experiencing, what he's doing with it and where it's going. And, and I think he kind of passes that on to his new guys. So I feel like, in some ways that just that peer support component, I've really enjoyed that. My wife too, she's part of the program. So, we've been able to do it together in some instances, and it's been nice.
Well, let's talk about too. You've got an interesting website. What did you expect? And when you go on there and read the story, it goes back to, let's talk about RICO. Where did the idea for this website come from, and what's its purpose?
Well, back when they started with all the police shootings, and Donna Brazil, the Democratic, not being into politics, but I would see her on every station that would say the largest killer of African Americans, black males, is the police across the country. And I was like, this isn't true.
Yeah, it's and there's a book out there called "The War on Cops" by just spaced out her name.
By McDonald. We cite that in the paper.
Yeah. And there's some research too done by a professor out of historically black college at Western Kentucky University, and a Harvard professor. The youngest tenured Harvard professor is African American, and they go through this and dispel these myths. But yet we get this perpetration in the media is that, well, the biggest killer of black men is other black men. It's not cops.
Right. It's funny when they first started coming out, my wife and I are like, okay, the Washington Post, they decided years ago, obviously that's true. So they started keeping track of all the unarmed African-American males that were shot, just police shootings in general. So we got all their information. So we actually did a deep dive, filed freedom of information on them. So in 2019, like I asked a friend of mine, how many unarmed African Americans you think were killed by the police in 2019? He goes, probably 1,500 to 2,000. I said, actually, it was 12 unarmed African Americans were shot. And I go, and of those 12, the Justice Department found that 3 officers had overstepped their bounds, and they were charged with murder accordingly because they didn't do it right. I said, but the other ones were all justified homicides. Just because these guys weren't armed at the time, they fight with the police, you try to get his gun, you try to run him over with a car, you do those other things, that resulted in your being shot and killed.
Yeah, unarmed is a misnomer because it doesn't set the context for what goes on. And I know we're going to get some grief from folks saying, well, you guys are being racist or what. No, we're not.
No, this is factually based. And that's what it came up with, because Mel Chancey, the president of the Hells Angels, when he got done on the RICO, we did him on the RICO, he looked at his mom in the kitchen, and he looked at his mom, and he says, "Ma, they got me on the RICO." And she looked at him. She's like, "What did you expect? You're the president of the fucking Hells Angels. You're at war with the outlaw motorcycle gangs. You're doing all these things. This is going to be the result of your actions." So that's what we came up with. So when we did the deep dive and I wrote the paper and we handed it out to our friends, because I go, "Look, guys," I go, "this is not true." I go, you got 55 million interactions between the police and law enforcement every year. Um, and when we did the thing in 2019, we found out that there were 12 unarmed African Americans that were shot. 3 were charged, by the police because they had overstepped their bounds. I go, in fact, the Washington Post had gotten it wrong. When we did ours, we found one of them was actually white, a guy they said was an unarmed black man, and the other one was he was actually armed and shooting at the police. So they knocked it down from 14 to 12. So I looked at it at the same time in 2019, in one weekend in Chicago, we had 18 unarmed African Americans were killed in one 24 hour period of time. 18. That's 6 more than were killed by law enforcement on 50 million counts for an entire year. At that same 24-hour period, you had 85 others that were shot, not one of them by the police. So these are in the city of Chicago, in these uber violent neighborhoods that are predominantly African American. That's where the focus was on. That's why the police are there. But again, it wasn't at the Donna Brazil talks about this genocide that's happening, and I agree with her. There is one, but it's not happening at the hands of the police.
Well, it's interesting too. Do you know who Ed Flynn is?
I don't think so, no.
Ed used to be actually the chief, I think, in Arlington County. He was Secretary of Public Safety in Massachusetts, but he ended up being the Milwaukee chief of police. And him and I didn't exactly agree on a lot of things, but one thing Ed was, he was very passionate, but he was at a city council meeting one night and they said, "Oh, you're not paying attention." And there's some video of this too. Yeah, where he says, "Hey, we just had another 4-year-old shot with this." And then he talked about, he said, the only people dying to protect Black lives are cops.
Correct.
And I know some folks are gonna, you said you're being racist. Absolutely not, because I say that to say this. I go back to all of those motorcycle gangs you worked, Chris. How many of the people that you arrested, what percentage of them were white?
All of them. 100.
If you were really looking to pick on people, you could have picked something else other than white supremacist, racist, and these guys were not the salt of the earth, right? They were probably some of the most
criminals.
racist.
They're bad people. Absolutely, they're bad people.
1%.
Committing crime. Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting thing too is, like, I've had to go rescue my friends in those communities. I've almost shot and killed in those communities at different times. So if I was a racist, I could stay home and not have that grief. I wouldn't do the Gideon operations if I was a racist. I would let things happen the way they were going to happen. It's interesting. So now the big thing is the largest threat to society today is white supremacists. So in Chicago last year, we had 796 people shot and killed, 851 total homicides. We had 4,542 people shot. 9 were shot by the police. All of them were justified shootings. None of them died. They were just shot by the police. Not one of those 4,542 people or the 851 homicides was killed by a white supremacist. So if you really want to talk about where the violent crime is and what real crime is and the real violence, then we need to have a real honest conversation about who's doing it and why.
I think everybody wants to go to the hashtags right away and do something pithy, and stuff, as opposed to doing the hard work, this is one of the things, right? Lisa McDonald, you got to read the book, you got to read the papers, you got to dive into this. And that's why it's so important on these stories that we tell. You got to get the context. You cannot just get right into if we just start talking about Gideon without understanding what was going on. And by the way, these Gideon operations, think about it. Who were these guys? What were the majority percentage race? What were they, and what were they robbing? What majority race were they?
It was the same. You had pariahs within those communities. In the communities, that are generally, they're going to be poor. You're going to have, the constant, their infrastructure, there's no reinvestment in those communities. And so you have got a crime rate. But there are people in those communities, law-abiding citizens, that fucking need a respite from that constant violence day in and day out. In Oakland, when we did the first Gideon, the first month we started knocking down the home invasion guys, we cut their shootings in half. for the next month. They're like, what are we doing right? Because we weren't telling Oakland PD what we were doing, but they were getting their comm stats. They're like, whatever we're doing right, we must be doing it. And it's because we were knocking off the most violent guys in those communities. When you ferret those guys out, the community, you allow the community to breathe a little bit, you know?
Well, take a look at the Asian home invasion gangs, the triads, the folks like that. They don't go out and they don't rob other races. They stay within usually their own race. Asian gangs will rob other Asian gangs. We had home invasion gangs traveling 200 miles to commit home invasions, and who were they doing it against?
Other
Other Asian
Asians, yeah.
families, right? And so I think what we're getting into is this is not about being racist. This is about being factual. It's about being realist and saying, you've got people out there pouring their heart and soul into this job, trying to make communities safe. Look, if you wanted to be racist, you like you said, you could just avoid working the Grim Reaper motorcycle gangs. We're not going to work any white motorcycle gangs. We're only going to go after this group or that group. And the point is, you go where the crime is. You follow the stats, follow the data.
Yeah, it's like losing your car keys in the kitchen, but you're looking for them in the garage. I'm not going to find my car keys looking in the garage. I lost them in the kitchen. You got to go where your car keys are. You got to go where the violent crime is. And if I'm tasked with affecting violent crime, then I'm going to go to the areas that are the most violent. And unfortunately, they're predominantly in those communities.
Well, let's talk about the issue of predominantly in a community, because I want to ask you real quick about Richard Posner. And because he actually kind of said some really bad things about the work that you guys did in Chicago. And like, again, he talked about the stuff that you did was racist and that these sting operations, that's what they were. Just give us a quick piece of context on this. How did this all come about?
Well, Posner is a Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals judge. And unfortunately for us, he's probably one of the most cited jurists, in the country on the appellate level. He read.
It's like the Ninth Circuit out in California. If you want to talk about the most overturned circuit, and then they have the most overturned judges in areas. Yeah.
Correct. Right. So Posner is probably one of the most cited guys. So anyway, he reads, there's the NY, the school of, it's NYU. They did like a term paper. It was the Cordova Law Review. And they said that, ATF, proactive law enforcement, is racist by gender, and the stash house robbery cases are racist because, we're only doing African Americans, we're only doing Hispanics. There's no white people that are involved in these cases, and it just wasn't true. So Posner, sets forth this series of events, and the problem with it is when you're at the appellate level, you're supposed to review the case that's on appeal for whatever the reason is.
You can only review the facts before you. You cannot go out and do anything extra.
So what Posner decides to do is he takes this NYU study that misrepresents exactly how we do these cases, which puts the air of impropriety into it as if it is entrapment, or that we're actually going out specifically to look for African Americans and specifically to entrap them, which we're not. And that's not how these cases go. They made all these remarks about, we provide them with guns, we provide them with a getaway car, we inflate the value of the cocaine, we inflate the dope amounts to get them to do it. We tell them how easy it's going to be to do the case, that the armed guards, it's only one of them, blah, blah, blah. We minimize the risk involved. We don't do any of that shit. So now you got an appellate court judge that all the other judges around the country have decided, well, that must have been some evidence that was found in the case that he was supposed to be reviewing, and it wasn't. So that started this whole cavalcade of events that occurred out. The Ninth Circuit got a hold of it. They started having issues. We end up with the Chief Judge Castile in Chicago. He's in the newspaper, saying that, I think he came out with, well, I can read it to you. In fact, he came out, University of Chicago Law School kind of put all our home invasion cases together and filed a motion on outrageous government conduct, selective prosecution. And the Judge Castile was going along with it. And so he writes in his memorandum of opinion and order, which at the end of the order, he finds it isn't racist and we're not selectively prosecuting anybody. But he can't help but get off the, I think it's racist anyway component. Even though there's no evidence to show that, he decided it is anyway. So in his response, he puts down here, he goes, it's undisputed in 2006 and 2013, the defendants charged in the district and the ATF fake stash house cases were 78% black, 9% Hispanic, and 11% white. During the same period of time, the district adult population was approximately 18% black, 11% Hispanic, and 63% white. He goes, these numbers generate great disrespect for law enforcement's efforts. So I had this sitting out on my kitchen table, and my daughter comes down. She's having her cereal, and she's at University of Wisconsin, Madison. She's an engineer now. So she reads the first paragraph and she goes, "Do you need to take a math class to be a federal judge?" And I go, "I don't know why." She goes, "Well, this judge would have flunked math." She goes, "You can't use the general population as denominator in your statistical analysis." She goes, "In fact," she goes up with her whole soliloquy. She goes, "The premise of his statistical analysis is wrong. You can't use percentage of population as a demographic. Anyone who had elementary statistics could tell you that." She goes, "Obviously, you don't need math to be a judge." She goes, "How many women," she goes, "are in that judicial district?" I go, "Well, 50%, of the population is women." He goes, "No women in stash house cases, huh?" I go, "No, not a one." She goes, "Well, then you guys are sexist." She goes, "How many Pacific Islanders you got?" And I go, "None." She goes, "Yeah, that's what I thought. Racist." She goes, "And no Asian people?" I said, "No, not in Chicago." She goes, "Well, then you guys are sexist and actually more ageist, because the general age of the home invasion robbers were probably between 25 and 36. She goes, "This is nonsense." She goes, "I would give that guy an F minus if he was in my math class." And I started laughing. But again, this is the misinformation that's been put out by the chief judge. Now, at the end of it, he decides, you know what? All right, you guys are right. You're not entrapping anybody. It's not entrapment. There is no outrageous government conduct. There is no selective prosecution. But you know what? It just stinks like racism. Like, well, I don't really give a fuck, Judge. If it stinks, it's not.
Well, the whole thing is that, look, there's a Supreme Court ruling, and I used to remind our county attorneys of this and some other folks. The Supreme Court said you can use trickery and chicanery in an investigation. You can lie, believe it or not, the cops can legally lie to people. If you ask me if you're working undercover and somebody says, "Are you an undercover cop?" You can lie and say no. Why are they shocked? They may not like your methods, but as long as your methods are within the boundaries of the law, you don't have to like the boundaries of the law and the Constitution. You don't have to like it. The point is it legal? It's not whether or not it's comfortable to you, it's whether or not it's legal.
Well, Posner's a guy that thinks undercover is nefarious anyway, and he doesn't like it. Even when the FBI did the Greylord operation back in the 70s, where they used informants and undercover to root out the corruption in the Cook County state judiciaries. The state of Illinois' judiciary was bad in Cook County. They had judges who were on the take. He found that to be appalling that they used undercover. So that's his mentality there. And I think an interesting thing, too, that the Supreme Court told and reminded appellate court and district court judges is it's this thing called the chancellor's foot. And they say, well, what's the measure of justice? Well, it's the chancellor's foot. Now, if we had a chancellor in charge, well, he'd say, I decide what the justice is, and this is what it is. And it's generally the measurement of how much of my foot's going up your ass. That's the chancellor's foot. And the Supreme Court said that's not how it works. Judge fucking Castile is not the chancellor in Illinois. Posner is not the chancellor in Illinois. We have a constitution. We've got a Supreme Court. And I'll remind you guys of the chancellor's foot. You guys can't just judicial activism or judicial advocacy where you're going to ignore the law because you don't think something's morally right or wrong. You think undercover is not a very good investigative technique or tactic. Sorry, man, that's not how it flies, bro.
Right, and so you get back into the division of responsibilities here. Law enforcement is just that, enforcing the laws. We don't enact the laws; that's the legislature's job. But then a judge's job, the judicial branch, their job is to make sure that everything was done according to the Constitution and the parameters are set by the legislators. And their personal opinion that has no meaning or merit whatsoever in the decision. And in this case, it's a perfect example because he found you guys did not entrap anybody, but yet he feels compelled to put his own personal opinion on there because he wants to exploit the office that he's been granted as a public servant, which is wrong.
Exactly. It's like that's why we have a bicameral system. We have a system of checks and balances. We have a judiciary, legislature, executive branch. Everything works in concert because everybody stays in their lane. If Judge Posner or freaking Judge Castile, they want to affect violent crime, well, then put a uniform on and go push a squad car around Inglewood or the west side of Chicago. Then go out there and do the fucking job.
All you got to do is look at the stats that are coming in. Philadelphia has hit over 100 homicides. They are on a record pace already this year. I mean, it's like at some point people are going to say, "Hey, I'm tired. I want to be safe in my community. I want to live safely. I want to be able to walk to the store and not have to worry about my 6-year-old being gunned down in a drive-by that went bad or whatever it is." And so, hey, look, and the thing is, I know I know some folks are going to send some messages or say something. We'll get some hate mail. That's okay. But you know what? Name one racist thing we've done in this. We haven't. What we've done is simply say, guess what? The majority of cops of NYPD or even Chicago, a lot of them in white, and they're out there defending all of the communities, not just one. They're out there defending all of the communities. NYPD out defending all of the communities, and just like you guys did, you were defending all of the communities. And so it's okay. I think it's okay to have some controversial stuff like this, because if you don't discuss it like adults, don't come to the table. Don't come here with your memes and your trolling and things that well, hey, what about this? Show me some data. Show me the reports. Show me some research that you've done, and then let's have a good, honest discussion about it. That's why Murph and I like to say we stay out of the politics, because we've seen idiots on both sides of the divide.
Oh, absolutely, and we do. I'm not saying that Republicans aren't like, but I think and that was the reason I went to the newspaper and ended up in the Tribune and in the Sun Times with an op-ed piece, because I got tired of my friends. Like I've buried my friends on these jobs that have worked in these communities, because they were out there doing their job to make that community safe, to ferret out those uber violent people in the communities and arrest them. Right, they've lost their lives doing it, and it does a disservice to those guys that are out there doing it every day to be called a racist or a jackbooted fascist and this other, defund the police crap. I thought it was interesting. I saw another statistic, or not a stat. I actually looked it up. Doctors kill 250,000 people a year by either negligence or malpractice. I go, we're not defunding doctors at this point. And let's take a look at the demographics on the 250,000 that were killed.
Well, the other thing though too, Murph, and you mentioned this too, there were times when you worked operations in neighborhoods. People came out and thanked you. You go on, you make the roundup, you arrest people. People would come out and thank you. The ones who get impacted anytime you remove policing services or you redirect services are the minorities. Those are the ones who least can afford the protection, that live in areas that traditionally have higher crime rates and need the police protection and these operations more than anybody else.
Yeah, and you look at today's society, well, parts of society where they're in favor of defunding the police. What a ridiculous idea, because these people that are stuck in those neighborhoods who don't have the financial means to move to a safer neighborhood, that's who protects them.
And can't afford to hire private security and can't afford, anything else. There's a reason why operations like this don't happen, and it doesn't matter. Forget the race. It doesn't matter in neighborhoods where you got high home values and stuff like that, because the criminal elements don't operate there. They operate in areas to where they know they can take advantage of people and rule the streets and run them.
And there's no better feeling when Chris and I talked about this when we were doing a little pre-call the other day, and he was talking about the Gideon operations, and it was somewhat patterned around what DEA used to have, the mobile enforcement teams. And I ran the one in Atlanta division for 2.5 years. There's no better feeling in the world when you come out and you've done your takedown at the end of a 6-month undercover operation, and citizens in that neighborhood come up and give you a hug. Thank you for what you did. Yep. And as you're driving down the street, they're applauding you. And you got the prisoners in the back street, in the back seat, and they can see what the neighbors really think of them. That's the best
feeling in the world.
Same
thing in Cleveland, same thing in St. Louis, same thing in Oakland. We got done when we were on the block taking some people down. It never failed. People would walk by very slowly, kind of look at us out of the corner of their eye, say thank you. We've been calling those guys for years. Thank you, got them, and they just keep walking by.
I want to bring this to a close with a very kind of interesting, let's tie this back, because there's one guy we've been working to get on here, and it's been tough because he's maybe doing something with a movie and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. But you mentioned the name Mel Chancey, and Mel has come full circle. And for a while, I wasn't sure. I was like, nah, this can't be it. But I checked him out on Instagram. I've been following him for a while. So we want to get this guy on. But so you'd made Rico on Mel. I remember reading about some of his story about the bombs. They were blowing up shit. Mel was a bad actor, right?
He was a very bad man. Yeah. It was interesting. That was the counter when I was doing the undercover with the Hell's Henchmen. They got in a war with the Outlaws, and Mel was the president of the Hell's Henchmen in Chicago. And make like a very long story extremely short, we grew up in a similar neighborhood, so we knew a lot of the same people, both good and bad. And so we decided I became a prospector, hang around with the Hell's Angel or Hell's Henchman chapter up in Rockford, which is 100 miles away. The ultimate goal was to get Mel wrapped up, but there was no way I could meet the guy. So long story short, I tried to stay away from him as much as possible. We didn't end up going out together. I met him a few times at parties, but we never had a lot of interaction where he got to really talk to me at any great length. So Mel actually got out of the club before we could RICO him. He was out of the club about 4 years, and he had called up on I would get all his jail calls, and I could tell the guy was kind of making a change in his life and deciding to kind of turn it around. So when it came time for the RICO, which RICOs aren't easy and they don't come about very quickly. So it took us a couple of years to finally put it together on him. When we arrested him, he had already been out of the club for about 4 years. And he just said he saw me at we were sitting down at the arraignment, and he looks over at the Hells Angel guys from Rockford, and he says, "Who's that biker looking guy with the ponytail?" And they're like, "Oh, that's Chris." And he's like, "Well, what's with Chris?" He goes, he was our prospect." And they're like, he's like, "And he's a ATF agent?" And they're like, "Yeah." He's like, F- on that one, guys, because that was fucking bad. So he's kind of shaking his head. So eventually he got through his lawyer. He called the U.S. attorney, said, "I'm going to come in on myself. I'll take my licks and move on." So he came in, gave up what he had done, and we were like, fine. Some of it pretty much all of it we had right. When Mel does his podcast, he says they had a bunch of it wrong. But now, Mel, be honest, we had the majority of it right. But he ended up pleading to I think he got 111 months to start. And then after our main drug witness ended up getting murdered against the other guys. So those other guys got it's called a C agreement in the RICO. So they got to pick their predicate acts. And so they ended up doing about 5 years, and the judge felt compelled to give Mel the same amount of time. So Mel got a reduction to 5 years also. So he did his time, but we actually go around the country and we talk to law enforcement. He talks about what he did back in the day to avoid getting caught, and I talk about how we caught him. So it's an interesting, but no, he's turned his life around. I had a lot of guys tell me, "Don't fucking vouch for that guy. You'll get egg on his face." And for years later, he's going to start a chapter in Florida, and he's joining the Outlaws, and he's going to go kill some judges, and he's dealing 100 keys of coke a week. And I'm like, well, if you got the evidence, go put it on him. But I don't think he is. But if you got the evidence, by all means, do him. Because I told him when he got out, I go, if you go bad again, I'll put you back in jail. But we're friends to this day. So he really has turned his life around. I mean, he started the prison ministries in the Joint. It was funny, when he was locked up in custody, he would have a Bible study, and he was in a county jail. The marshals in Peoria don't have their own lockup, so they farm it out to the counties. So he's out in Henry County, and so there's all these inmates. And he's like, the pastor would come in and they do Bible study. So Mel would make everybody turn the TV off, and everybody had to either go back into their cell from the day room and be quiet during part of a study, or he was going to beat their fucking ass. So that was their choice.
And if you've seen pictures of Mel,
yeah, Google the guy, Mel Chesney. Yeah, he was when we arrested him, he was probably he's about 5'11" or so. He weighed 300 pounds, and he was jacked. I mean, he's just this huge guy. So he would tell his guys.
He looked like a V on two legs, and just his chest was probably 60 inches around, if not more.
Yeah, he's a large cat. So when I first met him in the clubhouse undercover, I was like, man, I am just going to have to shoot this guy right in the fucking head, because there's no way.
You see somebody like this, and you realize why they give police officers guns, because there's no way you can take this guy down.
Exactly. Yeah, you're going to have to shoot this cat, because he's, and he was every bit of it, man. He was, and back in the day, Mel ran with all the leaders of organized crime, the freaking street gangs. He knew everybody. He knew everybody that was anybody. And, we just kind of became friends after he cooperated, came in on himself. And, The Rock does actually, I think, they're starting something up, I think, in the next couple of months, kind of tell his story. It's an interesting story. It really is, because he was, back in the day, he was it. He was everything there was about violence. That was Mel. And to have somebody turn his life around the way he did, it's a testament to the Lord, and a testament to people can change.
But let me tell you, the real test is people say, well, he's just doing that because you know what you find, people usually get what I call the double J in when they get locked up. They find a job, they find Jesus, and then it lasts just as long as it takes to get out. But I went back and, like I said, I was a little suspect because we wanted to have him on, but I want to say, is this guy really legit? So go watch his Instagram, go listen to what he says. He's lived the life. It's hard to do it for a month. It's hard to do it for a year. It's much harder to do it. How long has he been out now? I mean, what, 10 years?
14 years. 14 years? I think he's been out 14 now. Yeah.
So
he hasn't gone back on anything.
if he's carrying on for 14 years, pretty much after 14 years, I think you can kind of believe the guy's living a righteous life now.
I was just going to say, I've got him pulled up on Instagram right now because I follow him also. He's got over 78,000 followers, and he has a daily devotional.
Yeah, every morning.
He's got a devotional team called Devotional 316. I mean, this guy is, I was very leery, just like Morgan was, but I'm looking forward to getting him on the show. I can't wait to get him on the show.
I'm sure he would come. He was, he helped me out. It was interesting. I figured the places where people help you out. When I retired, you get kind of that, did I really accomplish anything? Did I make any changes? Did I make a difference and shit? So Mel had, a guy had reached out to him on Instagram. His son had terminal cancer, and he was in Chicago. And he said, "Mel, my son follows you, and he likes your devotionals and your inspirational stuff." He goes, "Man, if you're ever in Chicago, can you meet him?" He's like, "Abso-fucking-lutely." So by happenstance, we were going to do a presentation for the U.S. Attorney's Office, and so Mel came up. So I went with Mel to meet this kid and his family and stuff. And Mel talked to this kid for, God, it was only supposed to be like 45 minutes. Ends up being 4 or 5 hours. By the end of it, the kid's crying, his dad's crying, his mom's crying, Mel's crying, I'm crying. Just was so, I don't know. It was just exactly what that kid, it was his last chemo treatment. I mean, it kind of, everything kind of came together for this kid. He was excited to meet Melvin. So I go to drop him off at the airport, and he looks at me, he goes, "If the only thing you did in your career was fucking arrest me, and it led me to be able to sit down with this guy and his family, this little kid and his family, for 4 hours today, and that was it. That was God's fucking plan right there. That's all he needed out of you." He goes, "That was time well spent." I'm like,
yeah.
So here it comes, Mel Chancey, the former president of Hell's Angels, giving me some fucking like, "Hey, dude, you know what? What's the measure? What's the true, for real measure of what you've accomplished?" I'm like, dude, that's a good point.
Well, I can't think of a better way to bring this to a close, because that is, I mean, really, man, it's a life. Well, you had some challenges, like I said, with your kids and everything, but hey, look, everybody out there better know, if you're dating Chris Bayless's daughter, she's tactically sound.
There have been a few. She has a boyfriend now who's a very nice guy. I like him very much.
He has to be a nice guy.
Very nice.
And by the way, has your son figured out how to avoid the fatal funnel now?
He does. He's a lot better. It's funny, when he went to State Police Academy, he was like, "Dad, this is just like growing up." He goes, "I do quick peeks and shit." They're like, "Where'd you learn that?" He goes, "I've been doing it since I was 5. So it was pretty funny.
And your son's currently on the job, right?
Yes, sir. He's a policeman. He's 6 years now, 5 or 6 years. Yeah, he's, you can't talk to him now. He's a SWAT guy, so his
shit don't stink. Yeah.
Yeah, he's tactical. Yeah, he is. But my daughter's, she's more tactically sound and smarter than both of us, and always has been. So she's doing well too. Out in Cheyenne, Wyoming, building explosives. Or manufacturing explosives in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Sorry.
Legally, I assume.
Yes, very much so. Very much so.
Not one of these remote control pipe bomb things you're going to have to make a case on, right?
No, she's not one of those. No. Dino Nobel, I think, is the name of the company. Yeah. So she's doing good, super good. That's it, man. Been blessed by, I have 2 incredibly wonderful kids, man. Very proud of them, and a great wife. Very lucky.
You should be.
And it's good too. I mean, we're glad to see. Look, man, I can't tell you how, this is a little bit different than what we did before. We told a couple stories, and you guys see we kind of diverged. But I think when we bring it all back together, ending up about the story with Mel and about, your life's purpose, and if that was just it. But, you did a lot of other good stuff too. You know it. I know it. The American people know it. But it's just it's hard sometimes to admit it to yourself that, yeah, I did good work. I did good things. But you did.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, it means a lot coming from you guys. Appreciate it.
I was texting Lou while we've been doing your interview a little bit, and he refers to you as the real deal. You are his BFF. I never thought I'd hear Lou say that, but you're it. You're it.
That's funny.
You know what else is referred to as the BFF? It's called the Buff. It's the B-52. You know what it stands for?
Oh, yeah.
Big, ugly, fat fucker.
Yeah, I would. Chris does not meet that image.
No. I don't know. Talk to my wife. She pokes in my stomach a lot.
All right, man. That's my lower chest.
All right. Well, hey, look. Thank you so much. Hang tight. Don't go anywhere. But we want to tell everybody, you guys, this is an amazing episode. Again, if you send us hate mail, just put some stats behind it. We don't care. We just want to have good, great discussions. Chris, one of the best discussions we've had, just authentic, raw, and just want to say thank you so much for being on here.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it, man. It's been an honor.
a true honor to have you on here, brother. It's you are an American hero, regardless of what you think or anybody else thinks. You truly are. So thank you, brother.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for getting the message out. I love your platform and all this that you guys are doing for law enforcement, man. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, you guys hang tight. Everybody else, you guys stay tuned for the debrief. I'll tell you, the thing that most impressed me about Chris, like you said, and you said it early when we did the intro, he stuck to his standards. He has facts to back up everything he did. But I'll tell you, the most personal thing that Chris talked about was the thing that was most personal to him. He has been involved in so many stuff, so many things, been shot at. His partner's been shot at. He's lost friends at Waco. He's gone in to save agents, from being shot at. But it was towards the end of his career when the guy pointed the gun less than an arm's length away and he's got the gun in his face. When you just heard the emotion when he talked about how personal that got for him and why he made that decision he did, I tell you, it doesn't get any more authentic than that.
It was moving. I tell you what, and you mentioned it. I'm getting goosebumps now just sitting here thinking about. It just shows you that these law enforcement professionals could be the toughest guys in the world. They're still human. They're still fallible. Not that Chris was or any of these guys, but they have the same human emotions as everybody else. And you can tell this is all about his heart. This was his life, and it still affects him to this day. And the fact that it's not an easy thing to step up and say, I suffer from PTSD. That's not something that most people want to talk about. But the fact is, if you're suffering that, especially for our law enforcement professionals and our military personnel out there, if you have PTSD, you've heard us say it before, we'll say it on every episode that we get the opportunity. Please go get some help, get some counseling. Chris is a perfect example of how he could overcome the demons that were inside him just simply through getting counseling.
And many of the people we've talked to have fought those demons and they've won so far. Like it's a continuous fight. But we have all lost friends to suicide. We've all lost friends from folks who have suffered from PTSD. We don't want that to happen again. But anyway, so that was, like you, I get goosebumps just thinking about the awesome episode with Chris. And like we said, hopefully you kept your fingers off your triggers because we weren't being racist, but we were being very serious. The comments I made about the chief in Milwaukee, about who's dying to protect Black lives. He was serious about that. And these are people, if you knew him, if you knew the chief in Milwaukee, he's retired. He's pretty far left. People might think, oh, he's just a rip. No, dude's pretty far left.
Yeah.
But he has an obligation and a belief that he's got to serve his community. So anyway, our hats off again. And we salute Chris and all of the great work that he did. And again, and if you liked what you heard, just head on over again to Apple, Spotify, hit those 5 stars. Let us know what you think. Again, your ratings are helping us get more exposure so that Steve can go down to give a talk and have a bus driver come up and randomly say, you're what keeps me awake at night. That's interesting because, Steve, normally when you talk, you put people to sleep. You don't keep them awake.
That's why you do all the talking. I'm just here. I'm here for... You got the voice for radio. I got the looks for TV. What can I say?
Yeah, what can I say, man? Thank you very much. 15 minutes past the hour. It is weather. Anyway, hey, so follow us over there also. On that social media, Game of Crimes on Twitter, Game of Crimes podcast on Facebook and the Instagram. Head on over to paypal.com. Use our email, gameofcrimespodcast@gmail.com or paypal.me/Game of Crimes, whatever it makes it easier for you. But I'm telling you, get on patreon.com. When we get done, when this episode is out, we will have reviewed Patriot games for the Narc-O-meter because it's March. It's St. Patrick's Day, so it's it's not the narcometer, it's the Narc-O-meter, in good Irish fashion there. Okay. And we give our review of Patriot games, so you guys voted. It beat out the Irishman by just 1 vote. So it was really close. So
wow.
That's the kind of fun. Yeah, it's really, really fun stuff we have over on Patreon. We have, as I was counting it up, Steve, we have over 80 pieces of content now on Patreon.
Holy cow. Wow. I'm shocked. That's fantastic.
Well, and again, we have the people love, you can't make this shit up. They like 911. What's your emergency? So I have a couple calls. In fact, I will tell you one of the calls we will do because everybody's heard it. It's the Jean Bonnet call, but we're going to look at it in a way that you haven't looked at it before. So I did a lot of deep dive on this stuff. So, but anyway, head on over to patreon.com/Game of Crimes because that's where you got to be. So I'm telling you, Steve, I think this not only was it a great episode, I think we just knocked it out of the park once again, exceeding expectations.
And from Steve O. Murphy, thank you very much to everybody out there. You guys, and I mean that seriously, sincerely from the bottom of our hearts, man. We love you guys. We appreciate your support. Tell your friends, bring more people in. We'll keep bringing you great content.
Yep. And once again, to all you players and playerettes out there, and the Irish too, if you haven't stopped drinking, don't stop drinking. It's good for you. So thank you guys once again for playing the biggest, baddest, least racist, most dangerous Irish game of all, the Game of Crimes.